At Continental Group, we believe pensions are not simply financial products. They represent security, stability, independence, and the ability for people to continue living meaningful lives long after their final paycheck.
Retirement comes whether one likes it or not. How well we live in retirement would be determined not by how much we earned, but by how much we well planned for it. I believe this statement captures the essence of our discussion today.
A dignified pension represents security, good health, and a balanced state of mind in our later years.
Retirement outcomes are largely shaped by decisions made not today, but early in life.
Retirement is not the end of financial planning. In many ways, it is where the true test of financial preparedness begins.
If it is certain, we know we are safe because Continental Asset Management is there for our measurable asset growth. And of course, Continental Pension Services is your trusted pension solutions for lifelong financial growth. So we are in a safe place today. So give a round of applause for our organizers. This morning, we are here for the business breakfast that has been organized by Continental Asset Management and Continental Pension Services under the theme From Accumulation to Decumulation, What Happens After the Final Paycheck.
It is my pleasure on behalf of Continental Asset Management and Continental Pension Services, subsidiaries of Continental Holdings Limited, to welcome you all to this pension waking breakfast under the theme, From Accumulation to Decumulation, What Happens After the Final Paycheck. An African proverb says, tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. For many people, retirement planning is viewed from the perspective of accumulation, contributing, saving, investing through one's working life. Dare I say that sometimes we tend to reduce it to the deduction we see on the payslip. Yet fewer and far between are the conversations about what really happens when the employment income stops. How do retirees sustain themselves financially? How do they manage the emotional and psychological transition to retirement? And how do we ensure dignity, security, and peace of mind in the later stages of life? These questions affect us all. At what point do I start preparing for retirement? How should I prepare? Some of us are still on the journey to retirement and maybe have done less than half of the journey. But yet there are some, like me, who with every birthday are counting down the years to retirement and are thinking, what will it be like? We also have those that are already retired, and I'm happy that some of them are here to share their experiences. And yet, whether we are looking forward to retirement, are already in retirement, we all carry a responsibility, whether it be to ourselves, to the employees that we are responsible for as HR professionals, to those that have entrusted us to manage and their pension funds as trustees, or to our clients who are members of the pension funds that we manage or administer. The reality of retirement is sometimes very far from expectations, the expectations that we have during our working years. And yet, if we are to change this narrative, it begins with having honest and candid conversations around the subject of retirement and retirement planning. It is therefore my sincere hope that the conversations around the table today will help to bring the expectations and reality of pension and retirement face to face in a bid to reduce the gap between the two. At Continental Group, We believe pensions are not simply financial products. They represent security, stability, independence, and the ability for people to continue living meaningful lives long after their final paycheck. We believe pension preparedness goes beyond reading numbers on a statement. We believe it is important to understand those numbers and relate them to the life you want to live in retirement. We believe we should be asking the questions, will this amount be enough to cover my daily living expenses? And the closer we get to retirement, the fewer birthdays that we have to count until retirement, the more attention we need to pay to these numbers on that statement. Yet, not only individuals need to pay attention to those numbers. On a global level, we have those that are in the business of managing retirement funds. The fund managers, the pension fund administrators, when all is said and done at a global level, they also are paying attention to these numbers and need to pay attention to these numbers. Because when all is said and done, our goal is either to retire well or to enable our clients retire well. Pension income is a product of years of dedication and hard work. A dignified pension represents security, good health, and a balanced state of mind in our later years. Most of all, it is the product of the collaborated efforts of various market players and stakeholders. These include policymakers, regulators, fund managers, administrators, trustees, HR professionals, and many others. I'm happy to see that most of these are represented here today. In a special way, I would like to acknowledge the presence of retirees who will be sharing their lived experiences of retirement. May we all give them a loud applause. You are most welcome. We appreciate your willingness to speak to us openly and honestly about retirement. And we hope that your stories will help to bring humanity and practical understanding to the discussion on the table. As Malawi continues to evolve economically and socially, and in an environment where pension regulation continues to evolve in response to these factors, the need for stronger financial literacy, greater retirement preparedness, and deeper collaboration among regulators, fund managers, administrators, employers cannot be overemphasized. It is our hope that today's discussion will not only provide insight, but also inspire practical action. I would like to sincerely thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Patrick Mhango, the moderator, the panelists, and all stakeholders here present today for taking the time to contribute to this important conversation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, retirement is not the end of financial planning. In many ways, it is where the true test of financial preparedness begins. I encourage us all to engage actively, ask questions, share perspectives, and reflect deeply on how we can collectively improve retirement outcomes in Malawi. And with those remarks, it is my pleasure to officially welcome you all to this pension working breakfast. Thank you, may God bless you all.
Once again to the CEO of Continental Asset Management, Mrs. Gillian Kachikondo, for those opening remarks. And of course, as Continental Asset Management, you believe in measurable asset growth. And indeed, your speech was really focused much on that. And that was very powerful. And one thing that caught my attention is that retirement is not the end of financial planning, and indeed it is not. So please turn to your neighbor and tell them retirement is not the end of financial planning. Like I said earlier, it is the beginning of a new life. And one famous author, John C. Maxwell, once said, and I quote, "When an opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare," end of quote. And indeed, when that opportunity comes, I can see some of my fellow colleagues, younger, sooner or later we will retire. When that opportunity comes, may we be prepared. And such openings are a good platform for us to learn and work towards our retirement so that we enjoy a good life after we've worked very hard over the years. Having said that, it is my pleasure to now call upon our keynote speaker, and he is no ordinary man. He is an accomplished financial sector development economist, regulator with over 32 years of working experience with the Reserve Bank of Malawi, of which 25 years has been in financial sector development and supervision. Our keynote speaker was appointed Executive Director, Regulation on 1st April 2022, having served within the Reserve Bank of Malawi in various senior management capacities, including being Director for the following departments: Pension and Insurance Supervision, Capital Market and Microfinance Supervision and Administration. Prior to his appointment as Executive Director, Regulation, our keynote speaker this morning was the founding project manager of the Financial Inclusion and Entrepreneurship Scaling Project, which is a World Bank Malawi government project that aims at upscaling the capacity and activities of MSMEs in the country, a position he had held from 2020. He has served in various capacities within and outside Malawi.
Description of myself, I didn't know. Some of those things we have forgotten them. So I was saying, oh, they gave you the full profile, I guess, instead of the abridged one, the shorter version. But, well, it doesn't do us any harm. So, the Chief Executive Officer, RBM officials, I can see a few of my old colleagues from my office at the Reserve Bank, fellow retirees, distinguished guests, I can see professionals, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think for me, I should say it is both an honor and a privilege for me to stand before you today on behalf of Continental Holdings to reflect on a subject that is of profound importance, not only to the pension financial and financial services industry, but also to the long-term social and economic well-being of our nation. I would like to commend the organizers for convening this timely engagement that brings together key stakeholders to reflect on retirement preparedness, pension sustainability, and life after formal employment. Pension is a very broad and pervasive subject. I'm happy to state that as an individual, I have somehow been involved with the reforms in this sector. In fact, when I see Mr. Johanna here, it reminds me of the time we started looking into pension issues. Because prior to 2010, there was no pension law in this country. I remember that we had to spend sleepless nights agonizing over what we thought would be the best framework for regulating pension in Malawi. Because at that time there was only the taxation, there was only a provision in the Taxation Act, and that was for tax purposes. But there was nothing in terms of the law that mandated employers to provide pension for their employees. Anyway, maybe I should not talk much about that, because I think the theme of our discussion today is from accumulation to decumulation, what happens after the final check. So this is more of a personal perspective of the effect and impact of retirement. I would therefore like to state that retirement comes whether one likes it or not, and whether one is prepared or not. Come 30th September 2025, I retired and received my final paycheck. That was it for me. Let me say it again. Come 30th September 2025. In fact, it's funny because I was not even in the office. I was away. But I retired. I was no longer the revered EDR. At the office, I was called the EDR. So EDR means Executive Director responsible for regulation. I was like the emperor that was looking at all developments in the financial services industry. And yeah, I think it took me by surprise just to find that I was no longer that. So the moment was not merely financial, it was deeply emotional. Retirement comes with mixed feelings. Relief from years of, because you really are thinking, you're relief from years of structured responsibilities. You're looking at excitement about a new phase of life. And for many, uncertainty about the future. I think that's where the issue is. Because now you're moving into a new territory. For me, I was fortunate because I was psychologically prepared. I had accepted that retirement is not an end, but a transition. The final paycheck, therefore, was not a shock. It was a confirmation that one phase had ended and another had begun. I'm saying I was a little bit lucky because I'd been involved in issues involving pension right from the onset when we were setting up the Pension Act 2010. By the way, was it 2010 or 2011, that act? Mr. Kaluso?
Okay, enacted
2011, yes. Yeah, because we took it to Parliament in 2010, but it was rejected as a bad law, you know? And myself and Mr. Chihana were tasked to defend the bad law in Parliament. I remember we had, I think, about 60 questions to explain ourselves why we were pushing for that bad law. So allow me, therefore, to begin with a simple but profound observation. How well we live in retirement would be determined by how much we earn, would not be, sorry, how well we live in retirement would be determined not by how much we earned, but by how much we well planned for it. I believe this statement captures the essence of our discussion today. Ladies and gentlemen, retirement is a subject that touches every one of us. Whether we are employers, employees, trustees, regulators, policymakers, or service providers, we are all connected in some way to the realities and responsibilities of preparing for life after active employment. Retirement is therefore not merely a financial event. It is a change process involving human transition. It is emotional, psychological, social, and economic all at once. Retirement should not be seen as the end of one's journey. Rather, it marks the beginning of a fundamentally different phase of life, one in which financial priorities, personal identity, and long-term security assume an entirely new dimension. During our working years, I recall most of us, and I think that's the case with most of you, live within a structured financial framework. From my recollection of my life experience at the Reserve Bank in the past 35 years, The drill is we wake up every 5 days of the week in a month and go to work with the expectation of a salary. For every employee, salary is very sensitive and an emotive matter. Salary defines who you are in society, as it allows us to budget around a predictable income quantum, make long-term decisions, of course based on the assumption that active employment will continue. At the end of it, salary enables us to accumulate assets, savings, professional experience, and responsibilities over time. Amazingly, the merry-go-round changes on retirement day. In other words, retirement completely flips everything upside down, including the framework we just discussed. You just find yourself that you don't need to wake up every day at 6 o'clock. And then you just find yourself that you have all this time. And then you also realize that the financial resources are no longer there. The scenario above brings me to my next observation, the certainty of retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, there are some things in life that are certain. For example, birth and death. But for those in formal employment, there is another dimension. There is a third certainty that we often ignore, and that is retirement. It's a certainty. It's not something that you should be thinking that it will not come. It will always come. Whether we like it or not, each passing day moves us closer to that moment when the regular paycheck ceases. Yesterday is gone, today is here, tomorrow brings us closer to that inevitable transition. With each passing day, we're moving towards that day. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to pose a very difficult but very necessary question. If retirement is certain, why do so many people remain unprepared for it? In so many cases, people retire without even having, just like they've been shocked, just like it's something they never knew would come. I do not think that it's because of lack of knowledge, nor overconfidence in future earnings, or the fact that retirement is perceived to be far away by many. The truth of the matter is that in most cases, most individuals are naive and hence behave as though retirement will never come. That's the challenge. People still think I have all the time to prepare for retirement. Distinguished colleagues, the transition from active employment into retirement is one of the most significant adjustments any individual will experience. Suddenly, individuals move from accumulation to reliance on accumulated savings and retirement benefits to sustain life. Mind you, the quality of that life is often shaped by decades of formal employment that has just ended. I know this sounds a bit scary, especially if one is not adequately prepared. It is indeed scary. It is therefore unsurprising that retirement evokes mixed emotions. For some, it brings fulfillment and relief after many years of demanding professional obligations. For others, it offers the opportunity to dedicate time to family, travel, community service, personal development, and passion that had long been postponed due to professional responsibilities. I remember I was just talking about the same with a colleague of mine who retired a few years ago. And the good thing is he was well prepared. I remember when we were discussing at the office, he actually said, well, if I retire, I go into farming. He used to love farming. So now that was his hobby. And when he retired, he went into farming, and if you look at him, he's a happy person. It's not like he's a retired person, because he has something to do. However, for many people, retirement also introduces uncertainty and anxiety. Questions naturally arise regarding whether their savings will be sufficient, whether one has planned adequately, whether the inflation will erode their purchasing power, whether healthcare costs will become unmanageable, and whether they might outlive the retirement savings altogether. Peter Drucker, an Austrian-American management consultant, once observed, the best way to predict the future is to create it. So, retirement planning is therefore not merely a financial exercise. It is a deliberate and intentional process of creating stability, dignity, and continuity beyond one's active earning years. I think it's a good thing that in recent years, quite a number of employers, including my previous employer, the Reserve Bank of Malawi, what I've seen is have embarked on and invested significantly in pre-retirement planning trainings for their staff. This is very important. Normally, if I recall, at the bank, we used to start providing training or this workshop, I think 5 years to retirement? Is it 5 years or 10 years? 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. It's very important. This, to a large extent, helps their members to prepare and somehow softly land in retirement, though the landing is never smooth or exciting. It's a fact. It's never that exciting, because there are just too many uncertainties surrounding you in retirement. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important realities about retirement is that it requires a complete shift in mindset. Retirement introduces a different financial reality. At this stage, the central concern of a retiree is no longer how to build wealth. If you haven't built wealth whilst working, forget about it. I remember someone said, I'll build a house after retiring. You know what he managed to do? He was a colleague at the bank as well. I was just discussing with the director, Chihana, that one of the most painful experience is that experience that has been shared by our colleagues who left on non-pensionable terms. I think there were some colleagues who had to, I think during our job evaluations or restructuring, they had to move. And when you're moving, they give you almost everything. They used to give you everything. So they would even move you out of the pension, the pension scheme of the bank, something like that. These people are people up to now, they're struggling. Because yes, you get much more money, but money bends hands. The moment you have the money, you want to use it. Within a week, you are not even sure what you've done with that money. So the shift requires discipline, foresight, and prudent financial management. No one is now managing your cash flows like when you are expecting a salary. Yes, you'd get that lump sum, but how we use that lump sum, normally, nobody knows what happens to the lump sum. That's what I can say about financial prudence in retirement. It's always difficult. Retirees must consider how to balance present needs with future uncertainties. They must determine how to spend responsibly without living in fear. They must ensure that retirement savings remain sufficient throughout the increasing longer life expectancies. The challenge becomes even more significant when one considers broader economic realities such as inflation, healthy cost, economic instability, and changing family structures. Ladies and gentlemen, people today are living much longer than previous generation. This is in many ways, of course, a positive development. It's a resultant from improvements in health care and quality of life. However, increased longevity also introduces new financial realities. Retirement is no longer a short phase lasting only a few years. Many individuals now spend 30 or even 40 years in retirement. And it's a fact. And you have to think about it. If you don't have resources, how do you sustain yourself in those years? The message I'm trying to share with you at this juncture is that retirement planning can no longer begin 10 or 5 years before retirement. It must begin instantly. Yes, with the first paycheck. You have to start thinking about retirement planning. It is unfortunate that many individuals often say that they will begin saving seriously in retirement once they start earning more income. Yet even after promotions and salary increases, retirement planning somehow remains postponed to the following year. Someone likened it to physical fitness. Most people acknowledge its importance, but many hope to achieve the benefits without the discipline and consistency required. One of the great mistakes young people make is assuming that retirement is too far away to deserve immediate attention. Unfortunately, many people only begin thinking seriously about retirement when it is already very close and it's too late. The reality, however, is that retirement outcomes are largely shaped by decisions made not today, but early in life. The earlier one begins saving and investing responsibly, the greater the long-term benefits of compound growth and financial discipline. Financial habits developed during one's 20s and 30s often determine financial security decades later. One of the most important messages I wish to deliver is that retirement is not a testing ground. The time to experiment, take risks, and explore investment opportunities is during your working life, when you still have the safety net of a salary. But when retirement arrives, your strategies should be proven. Your income streams should be reliable. Your plans should be very clear. We must also confront a difficult truth here. How many professionals, now I'm looking at you, how many professionals in this room can confidently say that they have a clear and structured retirement plan? How many of us in this room? Or we keep on postponing it until that day? Do people have, I'm talking of not just having an idea, I'm talking of not just a hope, but a deliberate plan regarding how you want to live in your retirement. Think for a moment. If we, the professionals, are uncertain, then what of the ordinary worker? If we, because it's a fact, most of us disregard the issue of retirement. Now that we are all certain that retirement will come at some point in our lives, the critical question one needs to reflect on is whether you are building adequate savings to sustain your life in retirement in the face of a long lifespan. When you get your final check, what will happen then after? For Malawi, the socio-economic challenges facing the nation means that the pension system must evolve continuously to remain not only sustainable, but relevant and responsive to changing demographic and challenging economic conditions. It should also be acknowledged that the growing financial pressure facing many families today, due to rising living costs, economic uncertainty, unemployment pressures, and increasing household obligations, often make the case for long-term savings difficult for many people in the face of immediate consumption demands. This is the challenge that most families face of the whole ecosystem of laws, structures, and structures that we had put in place constituting the pension system in Malawi. Employees trust employers to deduct and remit contribution honestly and consistently. Employers trust pension administrators and fund managers to manage those contributions prudently. Trustees are entrusted with protecting the long-term interests of contributors. Regulators are expected to enforce compliance and uphold the integrity of the pension system, and that's very important, the integrity of the pension system. Once that chain of trust is compromised, the consequences can be severe and long-lasting. One of the most serious challenges facing pension administration globally is the failure by some employers or organizations to remit pension deductions after those amounts have already been deducted from employees' salary. Such conduct is not merely an administrative oversight. It represents a direct threat to the financial future and retirement security of workers. The consequences of non-remittance can be very devastating. Employees lose years of investment growth and compound returns that would otherwise have strengthened their retirement benefits. Individuals approaching retirement may discover that their pension balances are significantly lower than expected. In some cases, retirees are forced to postpone retirement because their savings are inadequate. Others experience financial hardships or become independent or financial members due to reduced family members due to reduced pension benefits arising from non-compliance. Sometimes we wonder why very old people keep on working. There are people that we have expected that we should have retired, but you find the job jumping from this job to that job. Why? It's because they never prepared for retirement, or someone messed up with their retirement package to the extent that they can't sustain themselves. So beyond the financial implication, there are broader institutional consequences. Failure to remit pension contributions undermines employees' confidence, weakens trust in formal employment systems, damages institutional credibility, and erodes public confidence in the pension sector as a whole.
Retirement is all about saying goodbye to tension and saying hello to pension. That's what they say. I'm sure we can ask Mr. Mhango about that. And of course, retirement is certain. He kept on saying that. So look at your neighbor and tell them retirement is truly certain. And truly, if it is certain, we know we are safe because Continental Asset Management is there for our measurable asset growth. And of course, Continental Pension Services is your trusted pension solutions for lifelong financial growth. So we are in a safe place today. So give a round of applause for our organizers.